welcome to Living Your Life Well Planned, the 80-20-365 Success System with Adam Vincent Gilmer. I'm your host, Gene Velitis, and welcome to episode number 21 as we move along here in the course. The essential thing you need, if you really want to get the most out of this course, is your daily planner. Go to the website, 80-20-365.com. There it is. That's the daily planner. You know what? For around $1 a day, you'll get a roadmap to your life. And if you incorporate the daily planner in with the podcasting, you simply follow the instructions, you'll have life-changing results. So, Adam Vincent Gilmer, we look like men in black today on the podcast. Pretty fashionable statement.
I got the memo.
All right, you got the memo. I got the memo as well, except for the red glasses. Okay, today, our topic for today is going to be a very, very interesting one. And I'm going to like this. Our topic for today, it's not simple, but it can be voiced simply. It's making a decision. Now, the thing that Adam's going to talk about, and I'll let him take over here because this is such a great topic. Most people don't even know how to make a decision. Most people make a wish-cision. And a wish-cision is not a decision. And a lot of people will make a decision, but then they fall off the wagon. And that's because they haven't made a committed decision. Now, if you have the opportunity somewhere in the world, and Adam has taught this course live in like 100 countries around the world, one of the very first things when you enter the seminar, he'll tell you to turn off your phone, quit texting, and then he will make you make a commitment to Adam, to the course, to the daily planner, and everything you need to do. This guy doesn't fool around. If you don't commit to him, he doesn't commit to you. But when you commit to him, he commits to you bigger than anybody ever has in your life. So Adam, let's talk about making a decision, because when I first started learning your material, my mind was changed. I thought about decisions I made in my life. They weren't decisions at all. They were more like guesses, or I guess really what I did, especially when I was in my early 20s, I made a lot of wish-cisions. And guess what? None of them came true. Tell me about making a decision. What do you have to do? What goes into it? What really is a decision?
Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody, or good evening, depending on where you're watching this. If you're watching it on the YouTube channel or Instagram, or we're on Facebook and everywhere else, good morning, good evening. Making a decision. It's, one of the toughest things you have to do is to figure out your life is a result of all the decisions you've made thus far. So for those people that are listening in going, okay, what are we going to talk about specifically? I'm going to talk about making really tough decisions. And tough decisions are these, you tend to think of them as these big obstacles in your life that, hey, you got to make a decision. It might be a new job. And especially through, this COVID period, people are like, deciding what they're going to be doing for work, or are they going to go back to work, or will they travel again? So there's a lot of, stuff happening when it comes down to making a big decision, a tough decision. Those tough decisions, I look at them as probably the most highest and best payoff, because it's a 20% item. And in our previous episodes, we talked about the difference between a 20 and an 80. 80s are relatively very, very easy to do, but 20s tend to be a little tough, a little more mentally challenging. There's a little bit of fear behind it. And you're like, okay, I got to go make a decision. And that decision is, whether it's getting married or are you taking the public transportation now that stuff is starting to open back up? Will you go out of your home without a mask or with a mask? All these great decisions. And, then you have to look at our country and going through, hey, it's voting time. So, there's a decision that has to be made there. So your life is where you are right now is exactly where you've been ended up because of the decisions that you've made along the road. I remember when I had the opportunity to make a decision whether I was going to be really good at my business or not. And, you talk about a committed decision, and the decision is, it's just like working out or what have you. When you first start moving yourself in a direction, the more committed you are, you keep going down that road over and over and over again. You actually strengthen, neural pathways on the decision that you make, and you keep at it and you keep at it and you keep at it until you become successful. And the challenge is people who going, can I stick with it? And the stick with it decision is a tough decision. It's not whether you should do it or not. It's, can you stick with it? And will you persevere and see the course? And that's what comes down to, like, using the daily planner, Gene. The same thing. It's a decision. So I use mine every single day. And, people inevitably ask me, what makes you successful? Well, I made a conscious decision to be planned and organized and have a game plan every single day. And that's led me to amazing places in my life. And as you know, Gene, we've traveled and we've done different things as far as building sales organizations and teams and people and inspiring. But at the end of the day, the person that's listening to this has to decide, okay, am I going to make this a habit? And what ends up happening with the tough decisions, the ones that actually are hard 20% decisions, once you make them and you stick with it, that ends up becoming a new habit in your life. And the habits that you have currently, how you get up, brush your teeth, work out, are you doing your planning, are you organizing, all these things become success habits. And they're really a long list of just attaching all the little decisions, reading your purpose, going through your planner, making sure that you got your bottom lines done, making sure that you're reading your current goals for the month. You want to have that month. And here's the thing, you make the decision to go through it. And as you string those beats together of all these decisions, you can end up in various different places. And, I mean, where I've been, and where
sure
you've
do.
been. And for the people listening, listening in, we just passed 9/11 just recently, right? A couple of days back as we're doing this recording.
We're at the anniversary.
And everybody remembers where they were. Yeah, everybody remembers where they were. And the funny thing is what decision would you have made on that day in New York if you happened to be in the building? Are you going to stay in the building? Or are you going to leave? And we talked a little about this. These are the tough decisions, right? And Gene, people want to make their lives move forward, and some people went into that building and never came back again, and some people were in and out of that building, and based on some of the decisions that they made. So when it comes down to making a decision, you've got to have a reason that you want to make this decision, whether it's getting on a diet or whatever it is, hitting your goals. Those decisions you make, repeated over time, lead you to a different place, or the place that you really want to become, or you really want to be at.
Yeah, man, I have so many questions to ask you. I don't know if we're going to have enough time in this episode. But there was a guy by the name of Earl Nightingale. You know who he is. Many of the people listening or watching know who he is. I kind of call him the grandfather of the self-help movement that really got started big time in the early 1950s. And if you ever go back, and some people may not even know what a record is, but if you ever go back and get a recording of one of these big black records and you put it on, one of the most memorable quotes that I heard from Earl Nightingale, and it goes through my mind all the time because I'm one of those people who, I got that inner voice that's, I get in the shower, and even though we do this, occasionally I get frightened and I go, oh, this is never going to work. But then Earl Nightingale comes to mind. Earl Nightingale said, when you make a decision, you reach the fork in the road, and most people think that others can accomplish things that they can't. And the fact of the matter is, it's not true. Why is it that when it comes to making a decision, a big decision about your life, why is it that we think other people can do things that we can't, when in fact, if we applied ourselves with a little bit of high performance training, we could do that? Why the doubt? Why the fear of failure?
Well, I think that's because how we're wired. And what happens is where you went to school and who you've been hanging around becomes a massive influence in your life. And, there's a great saying out there, you show me the 5 people you hang around the most, and we add up all the incomes, divide by 5, that'll be your income, right?
Yeah.
And we've done this in workshops. So it's who you're hanging around, what you're putting in your brain. You talk about personal development, and all the great authors, some of my mentors have talked about this, that today's schools don't teach entrepreneurialism, as an example. Okay, they teach you how to, maybe do accounting and manage the business, but you're not really making the business happen as sitting there in class. You've actually got to go out there and do it. So what happens is all that conditioning builds up from people telling you, well, when it can't be done, when you want to believe it can be done, and this self-doubt comes about. And I think it's a natural piece for people to be fearful when it comes down to making a life-changing decision. And a life-changing decision is, what new business are you going to start to get into, or how is it that you and your significant other are going to sit down and plan to change, have a better outcome in life. These are they're difficult to do, and what happens is, because we're wired a certain way, we want to believe, but we find out that our beliefs are low, and you got to work on that. And I can't shape somebody's belief, but the books that I've read, the people I hang out, the workshops that I've gone to, the daily planning, the organizing, this is reinforcing really strong habits. So I look at things and I'm like, I don't get afraid. I actually know that the more fearful the thing is, the better the outcome is going to be if I conquer it.
Right.
And yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. I just want to pick up on a point that you were saying. One of the mentors in my life, a guy by the name of Bob Proctor, made the really great observation, and it's so true when you think about this. And until I actually heard him say that and get seriously involved in your course, I didn't realize this. And for most people, it's an aha moment. And here was his quote: "You can go all the way through Harvard Business School and get an MBA from Harvard Business School, or in Canada from the University of Western Ontario, or the London School of Economics. These are three of the most prestigious business schools in the world. You can go all the way through and graduate, and they don't teach you two things: how to make money or how to make a decision." Isn't that alarming?
Well, I don't think it's alarming. I think that's the system, and that's why we do these webcasts and why we do the programs we're doing. Look, you've got to get educated, and an educated mind can make a decision. Okay, and I say educated, I'm not talking about just being book smart. I'm talking about being connected to individuals and people, because at the end of the day, that's what makes up a company. It's not a company name or maybe even their products. It's the people that actually make the decisions in the company, move it towards being successful or not. And in your company, you got to make, as I said, tough decisions. Sometimes you have to make a decision to let somebody go. Sometimes you have to make a decision to get somebody new in. And I've had to go through these decisions myself. And what you have to realize is, the harder and tougher the decision is that your emotion is to that particular decision, it tends to be one of the gratifying things. You can actually, when you handle a really tough decision that's been coming up, after it's handled, you kind of have this weight that leaves you.
Yeah.
But when people see other people like getting ahead, some people tend to think, and this is another decision they make, is, I'm not good enough, or I can't accomplish it. And they're right if they have that belief system. But changing beliefs is once you decide and you say, hey, how am I going to change that belief? Even if you don't have everything perfect, you got to take action on the decision. And taking action on the decision, actually making the decision and moving it's like going down to the gym. The first time you go back after trying to get in a workout, or when you start a diet, it's not easy day one. Okay. And day 2 and day 3, if you're trying to look at the whole thing at once, like, eating an elephant, you do it one bite at a time. And sometimes making big life decisions, you maybe have to make 3 or 4 decisions to make that big life decision come about.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about making decisions in people's professional lives, because I would imagine the vast majority of people listening to these podcasts are using it to get new and better results in their professional life. I'll just give you a little example of something that I've gone through recently. I'm like you. I'm in the gig economy, have several different companies, do several different jobs, because I don't want to get fired and suddenly have no money coming in. And with
Right.
with one company, I'm just going to be, well, my patterns of work. People listening or watching don't. But you know what? I always teach people and train people. On time is late for leaders, so I'm always early. I work my rear end off. I do my homework. I get things done. Um, if you have expectations about what I'm going to deliver, I will tell you exactly what you're going to get, and I deliver it 100% in 100% of the cases. Recently, with one company, some new person came along, and although they had done no new work, suddenly they were the fair-haired child of the company. Now, I didn't get jealous or anything, but I was supposed to speak at a Zoom event, sort of like a conference. And all of a
Right.
sudden, I went from the guy who had been shaping this company to, well, we'll put Velitis on later on. We'll fit him in somewhere. But we want this new fair-haired guy to come up and start talking, because although he's only been here for 2 weeks, he's really got everybody excited. And I said, well, you know what? I quit. And I did, and I went away. Now, that was a very, very difficult decision for me to make. It
Mhm.
wasn't based on ego. It was based on, I brought expertise to the table. I helped increase their sales, which gave them more money, which was a good reason for me to stay there and listen to me. But all of a sudden, this new guy comes along, and essentially, and again, it wasn't an ego thing. I just thought I was disrespected for the work that I put in. And I said, thanks for paying me. And I enjoyed working for you. And you gave me exactly what you said you were going to do. Now it's time for me to move on, and you do your thing with your thing.
Right.
What a hard decision. And you know what? And I went like this with money coming in. Snip. So there goes that money. But I'll tell you something. You know what? It
Take
was
two.
one of the best decisions I've ever made. And although it was difficult, driving home, and the only thing that little voice inside was saying was, oh, everybody's going to think you're a jerk and an egomaniac. But the more I started thinking about it, I made the right decision. And that also is a decision sometimes you just have to make. Sometimes the decision is just to walk away.
Agree.
But how do you do that?
Well, it's like getting started. I, you got to look at is what you're doing pulling you towards your goals and dreams, or preventing you from getting to your goals and dreams.
Yeah.
And if it's preventing you from getting to your goals and dreams, you have you have the coming to Jesus moment in yourself, right? Which is like, this is the decision I'm going to make. And it's really when you make those kind of decisions and you get serious about it, and you know that it can move you towards your uh, goal for what you really want to accomplish, it tends to be much, much easier to start having and making those harder decisions faster, maybe more frequent, and because it's moved you in a direction versus being stuck.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with a lot of people, Gene, is that they stay stuck because they made the decision not to act, or not to challenge, or move in a different direction. And because they didn't, they get caught up in that situation now, which is, being complacent and stagnant. And then their lives don't move towards a direction that they wanted.
Now, I
So
know, I know you've had to make many decisions, not necessarily quitting, but I know you've had to make many, many decisions similar to the ones that I'm talking about. But you've created this training program, and although we've taken lots of training, like the amount of training you have taken over me, I mean, it's massive. So when you make these kind of life-changing decisions, where somebody, I'll use bad language here, where somebody pisses you off, based on all your training and everything you've done in your life, and you've seen how properly making a decision leads to this, leads to that success. And sometimes, like I said, my big decision was to walk away from something. Like, how quickly do you make those decisions now? And how do you feel after? Like, I felt like I was the biggest idiot after I basically quit driving home. But I realized after about 2 or 3 days, it was a fantastic move, because I respected myself, and that's really important. So when you go through that now, what's your process, and how do you feel? Do you feel like everybody else, like I did? Finally, after a little while, I went, yeah, good move. Caused a little financial problem, but good move.
We're always going to second guess, because we can't read the future, or we can't say, we like to think once we've made a decision, here's what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But here's what ends up happening. Some people make decisions and they become remorseful, saying, oh, I made the wrong decision. It was the worst decision of my life. And what you find out is that that's usually a time to grow when you say that, right? It's like, is it really the worst decision of your life? I mean, versus, hey, walking away from income. I was just asked to come and speak at a major conference out in Orlando, and there were some people speaking at the event that I didn't consider to be pillars. In other words, they weren't doing the right thing. And I had to let the owner know that, I'm not showing up to speak if you make the decision to have other people speak, because, you have to have standards. And they made the decision, which was great. I got to stay home and hang out with the family.
Yeah.
And I look at it, I'm like, well, I didn't have to travel, wasn't going into a coronavirus heavy region. But the other thing is that, I could do it virtually, right? And I got to watch and be present virtually, but at the same time, very happy with the decision I made. The reason is you got to respect yourself. And when somebody's disrespecting you, you have to make, I just went through the same process. And here's what I'm doing all the time. I'm asking myself, is it really going to be the best for who, I am? It's an Adam decision, a my decision. Right. And is the outcome really is the outcome what I wanted? Yeah, taking a stand and doing what's right is a decent decision to say, hey, I feel comfortable with it. Now, when you said a moment ago, ego, we can walk in ego and say, oh, I need to be right. Okay. And I have this other saying, I say, listen, let somebody go and be right, and I'll show you how to get rich. Okay. Because sometimes people are making decisions which are like contrary to what's really best for, growth.
I love that expression.
and then you got to take a step back. And here's the other thing: Zig Ziglar said it. You got to check yourself. Okay, take a check up
from the neck up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now one problem. One problem.
And then the other, Ice Cube said something really good. He said you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? And what he's really saying was, look, you might want to consider the actions you're taking because of the consequences that are taking place. And if you think about how we make a decision, you go through this process. You're like, okay, got this thought. Hey, that sounds like a good decision. Hey, I'm going to move in that direction. And then there's consequences. And that's what you're really looking for when you make a decision.
Right.
Are you going to be able to handle the consequences? Because, sometimes people get exactly what they wished for or, planned for, right?
Yes.
And then sometimes people don't. Some decisions are in a completely wrong direction. But that's the real thing about learning.
Yeah. Hey, listen, before we wrap up episode 21 on making a decision, I think one of the most difficult aspects of making a decision is hanging on to that committed decision. We all have problems with that. I guess back in the day when a lot of people smoked, it was like, well, I'm going to quit smoking. And then the next day they would say, well, maybe I'll just start by just having 2 today. Or you know what I'm talking about. You make a decision on a Monday, suddenly on a Tuesday, you want to modify it already and you haven't even started the work. So how do you stay true to that decision? And if you honestly see that making a slight little change will in fact improve things, and it's not an excuse to go back to old bad habits, how do you stay on track? And again, like correcting a sailboat, how do you make a little correction so you stay true to the goal, stay true to the decision, but most importantly, stay true to yourself?
Well, and so for me, because I base everything on giving myself a roadmap to run on every single day, which is a plan. I go back to my planner, and you go through your purpose statement. Okay. After that, I'm doing my planning, and I've got reinforced good habits that are taking place that when I first started, the habits weren't so good. But now, because I've been doing it for so many years and years and years and years, I've got these naturally ingrained success decisions that we start the day with every single day. And I always wanted to give myself or anybody else listening the chance to be the best they can be, right? So you want to be the best you can be. How would a professional in any industry, okay, artist all the way through to, architect, okay, how would that person start their day if they were successful? And what success things would they do, consistently? And that's what I was talking about. You got to string all these little things together, and then at the end of the 24 hours or the 2 months or the 5 months, whatever it is, because you made those small significant decisions of keep reinforcing, and creating, pathways in your brain to be successful, which are decisions. You've now starting to run on a successful decision mode, and that's really a different way of planning and organizing one's time versus what currently exists. Okay, and this is what we're doing for people, saying, listen, get on track. It's very easy for if the track isn't down, the train can run off of it, right? But if the track's delayed, it's pretty difficult to get that train off the track, and it's probably going to show up at its destination. And you have to decide, which way the track's going, and the track that you have for your life is the right one. So for me, because I've got all these things that I do, these 7 habits, I do them like, I don't know, like religiously, but like it's every day. Okay, this is what happens. Like my wonderful alarm goes off in the morning, and I made the decision to have beautiful chime music wake me up, because that's how I like to wake up. It's just like, you're coming out of your slumber, detaching from the matrix and coming into real life. Okay, and here you are. And those are decisions that I've made. And then somebody says, well, that's a good idea. Well, then go do it. Like, if it's a good idea, go and do it. Make the decision and say, okay, wake up to nice music. That's great. Plan your day. Get in there. Start doing the habit of better decision making, and you'll end up in a different place to what you want to become than not become.
Yeah. I love it. I just love the whole process. And until you get into it and really go through it, you'll just never understand the change, the growth, how you'll feel, how excited you'll be, how the fear of loss goes away. And we've just completed 21 episodes now, and I have a feeling that episode 22 is exactly where we need to go to next, and that's stepping into leadership. Because I think we've given you the tools. We've put you on a different path, a different roadway. We've got all the directions up there. But I think in episode number 22, we're going to take a really big leap, and that's a leap into leadership. It's going to be really exciting. Adam, we'll see you on the other side.
Very good. Thank you.
In the meantime, remember, you need the daily planner. Now, we just don't just say this because it's, something we would like to see happen. Your daily planner is literally a roadmap of where you want to go in life, and the daily planner takes you there. Your mission statement, your goals, your 30, 60, 90-day commitments. This is exciting stuff. You need one. You're going to have one for a year. I mean, look beside Adam. Look at all of those planners that he has from this year, from last year, from previous years. That's Adam's life, and that's why he is where he is today. So get set for a huge leap. Episode number 22, Jumping into Leadership. In the meantime, get your daily planner at Adam's website, 8020-365.com. For Adam Vincent Gilmer and the Success System, I'm Gene Velitis. See you around the corner. Next episode, Stepping into Leadership. Bye for now.